The final notice crinkled in her worn sneaker as Nia Carter served her last table of the night, unaware that the silent man in the corner booth was about to change her life forever. When Luca Vitale offered her $200 for just 1 hour of conversation on his birthday, she thought it was the answer to her prayers until gunshots shattered the fog and she realized she'd just become a target in a deadly game she never knew existed. Now, with her 12-year-old brother's life hanging in the balance and enemies closing in from every shadow, Nia must choose between the safety of strangers and the dangerous protection of a man whose secrets could either save her or destroy everything she's fought to build. But when the Italian Mafia boss looks at her like she's worth dying for, and she finds herself willing to risk it all for a love that started with a birthday candle and a wish he thought he'd never make again, the real question becomes, how far will two broken souls go to protect each other? Subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this story of survival, sacrifice, and unexpected love is about to take a turn that will leave you breathless. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. Nia Carter wiped down the same table for the 3rd time, her rag moving in slow circles as she watched the bachelor party get louder at table 6. Her feet ached in the worn sneakers she'd superglued back together last week. "Order up," Mr. Halpin called from behind the pass, his voice tight with the kind of worry that came from 30 years of running a corner diner. His eyes darted between the rowdy customers and the clock on the wall. Nia grabbed the plates, balancing them on her forearm like she'd done thousands of times before. The bachelor party had been drinking since they walked in 2 hours ago. Their voices carried that mean edge alcohol brings out in some men. "Hey, sweetheart," one of them called as she set down their burgers. "You forgot something." She'd learned not to ask what. Instead, she kept her face neutral and waited. "Your smile," he said, grinning like he'd invented comedy. His friends laughed too loud. "Come on, give us that pretty smile." The final notice from her landlord crinkled in her shoe where she'd hidden it. $300 past due. $300 she didn't have. The paper felt like it was burning through her sock. "Anything else I can get you?" she asked instead of smiling. The man's face turned ugly. "Attitude problem much?" Behind them, in the corner booth where he always sat, a man looked up from his coffee. Nia had served him dozens of times over the past few months. He never caused trouble, never made jokes, just ordered black coffee and ate whatever the special was, always leaving exact change, plus a 20% tip. Tonight felt different. His dark eyes moved from her face to the bachelor party like he was measuring something. "Just the check," she told the drunk men, pulling her order pad from her apron pocket. "What's the rush?" The leader leaned back in his chair, making it creak. "We're having a good time. You should try it sometime." Tommy, the teenage busboy, appeared at her elbow with a pitcher of water. His hands shook slightly as he refilled their glasses. The men's attention shifted to him like sharks smelling blood. "Look at baby face over here," one of them said. "What are you, 12? 16, Tommy mumbled, not looking up. 16 and working in a dump like this. That's sad, kid. Real sad. Nia stepped closer to Tommy, her body forming a small shield. "Your check," she said again, tearing the paper from her pad. The leader snatched it from her hand, their fingers brushing. His grip lingered too long, his thumbs stroking across her knuckles. "What if I said I wanted more than dinner?" The air in the diner changed. Even the regular customers at the counter turned to look. "Mr." Halpin stepped out from behind the kitchen, a dish towel in his hands and worry carved into his face. "Sir, if you could just—" Mr. Halpin started. "We're talking to the waitress, Pops," the man said without looking away from Nia. His friends laughed again. That's when the man in the corner booth moved. He didn't stand up or raise his voice. He just shifted forward in his seat, coffee cup still in his hand, and looked at the bachelor party. Something about that look made the temperature drop 10 degrees. The leader finally let go of Nia's hand and glanced over. Whatever he saw in the stranger's face made him reach for his wallet. "Fine. Here." He threw a 20 on the table and stood up fast enough to make his chair scrape. "This place is a dump anyway." They left in a cluster of cheap cologne and loud voices, the door's bell ringing harsh as they stumbled into the night. The diner exhaled. Normal conversation slowly returned. Tommy finished clearing their table, stacking plates with careful hands. "You okay?" Nia asked him. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Mr. Halpern approached their table, wringing his dish towel. "I'm sorry about that." "Nia, I should have." "It's not your fault." She picked up the 20 and 3 ones they'd left, scattered across the table. $23 on a $60 tab. Her jaw clenched. The rest of her shift passed quietly. The regular customers finished their pie and coffee. The couple by the window paid their check and left with grateful smiles. By 10 o'clock, only the man in the corner booth remained. Naya had learned his routine over the months. He'd order one more coffee, drink it slowly while reading something on his phone, then leave precisely at closing time. He never tried to talk to her beyond ordering, never made her feel like he was watching her the wrong way. Tonight, he broke pattern. "Excuse me," he said as she wiped down the table next to his. His voice was quiet, controlled, no accent, but something in the way he shaped his words suggested English wasn't his first language. Up close, she could see the expensive fabric of his dark coat, the way his hair was cut with precision that cost money. "More coffee?" she asked. "No." He folded his hands on the table. His fingers were clean, nails trimmed, no wedding ring. "I have a question." Mr. Halpin was counting the register, his back to them. Tommy had gone home an hour ago. The diner felt huge and small at the same time. "Okay," she said, stopping her wiping. "Do you work every night?" The question was innocent enough, but something in his stillness made her careful. "Most nights? Why?" "I eat here often. I've noticed you handle difficult customers with grace." Grace. Not many people used words like that in the diner. She studied his face, looking for the catch. Men always had a catch. "Thanks. I guess." He reached into his coat pocket, and her body tensed automatically. But he only pulled out a phone to check the time. "It's 10:15. You close soon." 10:30. "Mr. Halpin locks up?" Now she was definitely suspicious. "Why are you asking?" "Because I'd like to hire you for an hour of your time after you finish here." The words hung in the air like smoke. Naya's hand tightened on her rag. This was it. This was the catch. The too-good-to-be-true customer, finally showing his real colors. "I'm not that kind of—" "For conversation," he said quickly. "Nothing more. 1 hour. Public place. Your terms." She stared at him. "What?" "It's my birthday." He said it like an apology. "I don't celebrate, but tonight I find I don't want to spend it entirely alone." His honesty caught her off guard. There was something raw in his voice, quickly covered but still visible, like a wound through torn cloth. "You want to pay me to talk to you?" "Yes." "For an hour?" 1 hour exactly. "Where?" "Wherever you feel safe. The Pier, a late-night diner across town. Your choice." Naya's mind raced. This was crazy. Men who hired women for their time always wanted more than time, no matter what they said. But the final notice crinkled in her shoe, and Malik needed lunch money for tomorrow, and the electric bill was due Thursday. "How much?" she heard herself ask. 200. Her breath caught. $200 was groceries for 3 weeks. It was Malik's school shoes. It was breathing room she hadn't had in months. "Cash?" "Cash. And you just want to talk?" "Talk. Walk if you prefer. I'll set a timer. When it goes off, I disappear and you go home." Mr. Halpern finished with the register and started turning off lights in the back. Soon it would just be her and this stranger and whatever choice she was about to make. "I need to think about it," she said. "Of course." He picked up his coffee cup, draining the last drops. "I'll wait outside until you decide." He stood and pulled out his wallet, leaving a $10 bill on the table for coffee that cost $2.50. Then he walked to the door, his footsteps steady and sure. Through the window, she watched him lean against a black car parked across the street. He lit a cigarette and checked his phone, patient as stone. "Everything okay?" Mr. Halpern appeared at her elbow, keys jingling in his hand. "Yeah." She was still watching the man outside. "Mr. Halpern, what do you think of the guy who sits in the corner booth?" "Luca," he followed her gaze, "been coming here for months. Always polite. Tips well. Why?" "Just wondering." Mr. Halpern studied her face. "Naya, honey, whatever you're thinking, I'm fine." She untied her apron and grabbed her jacket from the hook. "See you tomorrow." Outside, the night air was cool and damp. The man Luca straightened when he saw her but didn't approach. He waited for her to cross the street to him. "I have conditions," she said. "Name them." "Public place only. No touching, no going anywhere private. I start a timer on my phone, and when it goes off, we're done." "Agreed. And I see the money first." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. She counted the bills quickly under the streetlight. 10 20s. Exactly. The Pier, she decided. It was only 3 blocks away, well lit, usually had at least a few people around even late at night. Lead the way. They walked in silence through the empty streets. Their footsteps echoed off the buildings, hers quick and nervous, his measured and calm. A few cars passed, their headlights sweeping over them briefly before moving on. The pier stretched into the harbor like a wooden finger pointing at the dark water. Security lights created pools of yellow every 50 feet. A jogger ran past them toward shore, earbuds in, lost in her own world. Naya stopped at the railing and pulled out her phone. 1 hour, she said, setting the timer. Starting now. The display glowed. 59 to 59, 59 to 58, 59 to 57. Thank you, Luca said quietly. They stood side by side looking out at the water. A fog was rolling in from the harbor, making the lights across the bay look soft and blurred. The sound of water lapping against the pier pilings was almost musical. So, Naya said after a minute, why do you hate birthdays? He was quiet so long she thought he might not answer. Finally, I don't celebrate them anymore. But this is one? A birthday? 33 years today. Happy birthday then. Thank you. She turned to study his profile. You don't look happy about it. Birthdays are for making wishes. I stopped doing that a long time ago. Why? Because some things can't be undone. The fog was getting thicker. The jogger had disappeared into it, leaving them alone with the soft sound of water and distant traffic. Nia pulled her jacket tighter. What do you do? She asked. For work. Import business. What kind of imports? Various things. It was clearly the end of that conversation thread. She tried another angle. Family? No. Friends? A few. But you're here with me, instead of them. He looked at her then, really looked. His eyes were dark brown, almost black in the pier lights. They wouldn't understand why I needed this. And what is this, exactly? Honest conversation with someone who doesn't know my story. A drunk man stumbled onto the pier behind them, singing off-key. Nia tensed automatically, but Luca simply shifted position, placing himself between her and the man. He didn't say anything or make it obvious, just moved like it was natural. The drunk man saw them and changed direction, weaving toward the railing. Hey, you too. Pretty girl. You're with the wrong guy. He grabbed Naya's arm as he passed. Not hard, but unexpected enough to make her stumble. Luca moved like water flowing downhill. Smooth, inevitable. One moment he was beside her, the next he was facing the drunk man, his voice soft as silk. Let go. Something in those 2 words made the drunk man's hand drop instantly. He took a step back, then another, suddenly very sober. Sorry, man. Didn't know she was yours. She's not mine, Luca said, still in that same quiet voice. But you're going to walk away now and forget you saw us. The man nodded quickly and hurried off the pier, his singing completely forgotten. Nia stared at Luca. How did you do that? Do what? Make him leave without even touching him. Some people respond to authority. And others, he looked at her steadily. Others require different methods. A chill ran down her spine that had nothing to do with the fog. She checked her phone. 41 minutes left. There's a food cart that stays open late, she said. Want to walk that way? They left the pier and headed up Water Street toward the small cluster of late-night businesses that catered to dock workers and insomniacs. The fog followed them, making the streetlights look like ghosts. So, what's your story? Luca asked as they walked. Nothing special. Work at the diner. Take care of my little brother. Try to keep the lights on. Your parents? Mom died 2 years ago. Dad was never really in the picture. I'm sorry. It's okay. Malik's a good kid. Smart. He's 12. They reached the food cart, a converted hot dog stand with a hand-lettered sign that read, Eddie's All Night Eats. The owner, a thin man with graying hair, looked up from his magazine. What can I get you folks? Coffee, Nia said. And maybe one of those muffins. Make it 2 coffees, Luca added. And the blueberry muffin. They sat on a nearby bench with their coffee and shared the muffin between them. Naya pulled a small candle from her purse, left over from Malik's birthday last month, and stuck it in the muffin. What are you doing? Luca asked. Hang on. She dug around for a lighter, found one in her jacket pocket, and lit the tiny candle. There. Now, it's a proper birthday. The flame flickered in the damp air but held steady. She started to sing, Happy Birthday, quietly, just for him. Other people might have been embarrassed, but something about the way he watched her made her feel brave. Make a wish, she said when she finished. I told you. 1 wish. Come on, it's your birthday. He stared at the candle for a long moment. The flame reflected in his dark eyes, making them look almost alive with light. "I can't," he said finally. "Why not?" "Because the last time I made a birthday wish, everything I loved was taken away." Before she could ask what he meant, there was a soft popping sound from somewhere behind them. Luca's body went rigid, his head turned, scanning the street. "What?" Nia started. "Get down." His voice was sharp, commanding. Another pop, and this time she saw a small chip of concrete fly off the building beside them. Understanding hit her like cold water. Someone was shooting at them. Luca grabbed her hand and pulled her behind a concrete pillar that supported the building's awning. His phone was already in his other hand, and he typed something quickly with his thumb. "This is because of me," he said, his voice tight with what might have been anger or regret. "What do you mean?" "You were seen with me. That makes you a target." A black sedan pulled up to the curb, engine running. Luca checked his phone, then looked at her. "I need to get you somewhere safe. I need to go home. My brother." "Your brother is fine, but you can't go home right now." "What are you talking about?" Her voice was rising despite her effort to stay calm. "I'll explain everything. But first, we need to move." The sedan's passenger door opened, and a man stepped out. He was shorter than Luca, but built like a boxer, with careful eyes that took in everything at once. "Matteo," Luca called softly. The man approached, moving like he owned the street. "All clear," he said. "For now." "This is Nia," Luca told him. "Nia, Matteo." "Ma'am." Matteo nodded politely, like they were being introduced at a church social instead of hiding behind a pillar after gunshots. "I want to go home," Nia said. "I understand," Luca said. "But someone just put your picture on a very dangerous list. Going home puts your brother at risk too." Her blood turned to ice. "What list? What are you talking about?" Luca and Matteo exchanged a look that spoke a language she didn't understand. "I'll explain in the car," Luca said. "But right now, we need to leave." Nia looked at her phone. 26 minutes left on the timer. 26 minutes ago, her biggest problem was making rent. Now someone was shooting at her, and this stranger was talking about lists and targets like it was normal. "If I get in that car with you," she said slowly, "what happens to my hour?" "Your hour stops being about money," Luca said. "It starts being about staying alive." The fog swirled around them, thick enough now to hide the far end of the block. Somewhere in that grey mist, someone with a gun was probably still watching. "What kind of import business are you really in?" she asked. "The kind that has enemies." She closed her eyes and thought about Malik asleep in their tiny apartment, trusting her to come home safe. Thought about the final notice in her shoe and the job that barely paid enough to survive. When she opened her eyes, Luca was still watching her with that careful attention, like her answer mattered more than just about anything. "If I say yes," she said, "I want rules. Name them. No locked doors, no surprises, no taking away my choice about when to leave." "Agreed. And I want to call my brother in the morning, let him know I'm okay." "Of course." She looked at the sedan, its engine purring quietly in the fog. Matteo stood by the open door, patient as a statue. "How do I know you're not worse than whoever's shooting at us?" "You don't," Luca said honestly. "But right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and them." Nia Carter had been making hard choices her whole life. This was just one more. She picked up the muffin with its melted candle and walked toward the car. 26 minutes left," she said, as Matteo closed the door behind her. "The timer's still running." As they drove through the fog-shrouded streets, she caught Luca's reflection in the window. He was looking at the melted candle in her hands like it was the most important thing in the world. Like maybe, after all this time, he was finally ready to make a wish. The townhouse appeared out of the fog like something from a dream. 3 stories of red brick with white trim, tucked between similar houses on a quiet street lined with old trees. Warm light glowed behind curtains, making it look like the kind of home where families gathered for Sunday dinner. Nia stared up at it from the back seat of the sedan. "This is where you live?" "One of several places," Luca said as Matteo parked at the curb. "This one is secure." The front door opened before they reached it. A woman in her 60s stepped out, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She was small and sturdy, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and kind eyes that took in Nia's torn jacket and worried face. "Signora Lina," Luca said, "this is Nia." "Welcome, dear." Her voice carried a slight Italian accent, and the warmth of someone who had spent decades feeding people. "I've made soup, and there are clean towels in the guest room." Inside, the house was nothing like Nia expected. The furniture was comfortable rather than expensive. Books filled built-in shelves, photographs of what looked like family gatherings lined the mantel over a fireplace, where a small fire crackled. "It looks normal," Nia said, then immediately felt stupid for saying it. Luca almost smiled. "What were you expecting?" "I don't know. Guns on the walls? Dead bodies in the freezer?" Now he did smile, just a little. "Wrong kind of import business." Signora Lina bustled toward the kitchen. "Sit, both of you. You look like you've had a shock." The kitchen was the heart of the house. Copper pots hung from hooks above an old gas stove. The wooden table was scarred from years of use but polished to a warm shine. Herbs grew in small pots on the windowsill. Lina ladled soup into bowls, thick vegetable broth with tiny pasta shapes floating in it. The smell made Naya's stomach growl. She hadn't eaten since her shift started 6 hours ago. "Thank you," she said, accepting the bowl gratefully. "Prego." Lina patted her shoulder gently. "Eat. Everything is better with food." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The soup was perfect, warming her from the inside out. Across the table, Luca ate with careful attention, like someone who didn't take meals for granted. "So," Naya said eventually, "are you going to explain what happened back there?" Luca set down his spoon. "What do you know about organized crime?" "What I see in movies, I guess. Movies get some things right. They get others very wrong." He reached for his water glass. "The part they usually get right is that it's about territory, business, control. And the part they get wrong? They make it seem glamorous. There's nothing glamorous about violence." Naya studied his face. "You would know?" "Yes." The simple honesty of it was somehow more frightening than any threat could have been. This wasn't a man pretending to be dangerous for effect. This was someone stating a fact about his life. "What does that have to do with me? I have enemies. People who would hurt anyone close to me just to send a message. But I'm not close to you. I barely know you. You were seen with me. That's enough." Lina cleared their empty bowls without comment, moving around the kitchen like she'd heard this kind of conversation before. She returned with coffee and small glasses of something amber-colored. "Grappa," she explained to Nia. "For the nerves." Nia sipped it carefully. It burned going down but left a warm glow in her chest. "How long does this usually last? The danger part?" Luca exchanged a look with Matteo, who had been so quiet she'd almost forgotten he was there. "Depends," Matteo said. It was the first time she'd heard him speak more than 2 words. His voice was gravelly, like someone who didn't waste words. "On what?" "On whether they think you matter to him," Matteo said, nodding toward Luca. "But I don't matter to him. We just met." "They don't know that," Luca said quietly. "And now that you've been seen with me, they'll assume you do." The implications settled over her like a cold blanket. "So what happens now?" "Now you stay here until we figure out how to fix this." "For how long?" "A few days, maybe a week." Nia stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "A week? I can't stay here for a week. I have a job. I have a brother to take care of." "Your brother is safer if you're not with him right now." "You don't understand." She paced to the window, looking out at the quiet street. "He depends on me. We don't have anyone else." "I understand more than you think." Something in his voice made her turn around. Luca was staring down at his coffee cup like it held secrets. "I had someone who depended on me once," he said. "I failed to protect her." "What happened?" "She died because I wasn't careful enough, because I thought I could keep my work separate from my life." He looked up at Nia. "I won't make that mistake again." The kitchen fell quiet except for the soft bubbling of something simmering on the stove. Lina moved between counter and sink, giving them space to talk, but staying close enough to offer comfort if needed. "I need to call my brother," Nia said. "Of course, but not from your phone. They might be monitoring it." Matteo handed her a simple cell phone. "Clean," he said. "No one can trace it." Nia dialed the familiar number with shaking fingers. It rang twice before a sleepy voice answered. "Hello?" "Hey, Malik, it's me, Nia. Why are you calling from a different number? And why are you whispering?" She hadn't realized she was whispering. "I'm fine. I have to work late tonight. I might not be home until morning." "Are you okay? You sound weird." Malik was 12, but he'd grown up fast. Too fast. He could hear things in people's voices that other kids missed. "I'm fine, baby. I promise. Miss Dina is still checking on you, right?" "Yeah. She brought me leftover mac and cheese for dinner. But Naya, what? There was a man asking about you earlier. Miss Dina told him you weren't home, but he kept asking questions. About where you work and stuff. Ice formed in Naya's stomach. What kind of man? I don't know. I only saw him from the window. He was in a grey car. Across the table, Luca was watching her face carefully. Whatever he saw there made him straighten in his chair. Malik, listen to me, she said, fighting to keep her voice calm. I want you to pack a bag, just a few things. Miss Dina is going to take you to stay with her cousin across town for a couple days. What? Why? It's just a precaution. Remember the fire drill we talked about? They'd never had that conversation, but Malik was smart. Yeah, he said slowly. I remember. Good. Pack light and be ready in 10 minutes. Nia, you're scaring me. I know, baby. But I need you to trust me, okay? I'll explain everything soon. I love you. Love you too. She hung up and handed the phone back to Matteo. They found where I live. We'll handle it, Luca said. He was already texting someone. Matteo will make sure your brother gets to safety. I want to go with him. No. He's my responsibility, and now you're mine. The words hung in the air between them. Naya felt something shift in her chest, part gratitude, part resentment at being protected, whether she wanted it or not. I don't remember asking to be your responsibility. You didn't. But you are anyway. Signora Lina appeared with fresh towels and a thick robe. The guest room is upstairs, first door on the right, she said to Nia. There's a lock on the inside of the door, but no one will bother you. Nia took the towels gratefully. Thank you. Luca, Lina said, switching to rapid Italian that Nia couldn't follow. Whatever she said made him nod and look slightly chastened. What did she say? Nia asked. That I should remember you're a guest, not a prisoner. Smart woman. The smartest. Upstairs, the guest room was simple but comfortable. A double bed with a blue quilt, a reading chair by the window, and a small desk with fresh flowers. It looked like the kind of room someone's grandmother would keep for visiting family. Nia sat on the edge of the bed and pulled off her shoes. The final notice fell out, forgotten until now. She smoothed it out and stared at the numbers. $300. This morning, it had seemed like the end of the world. Now it felt like the least of her problems. A soft knock at the door made her look up. Come in. Luca appeared with a steaming mug. Lina thought you might want tea. Thank you. She accepted the mug, wrapping her hands around its warmth. He gestured toward the chair. May I? She nodded, and he sat down carefully, leaving plenty of space between them. I know this isn't what you signed up for, he said. No kidding. I want you to know you can leave any time you want. I won't stop you, but I hope you'll stay until we can make sure you're safe. And how long will that take? I don't know yet. At least he was honest. Nia sipped her tea chamomile with honey and studied his face in the lamplight. Can I ask you something? Of course. What kind of import business are you really in? He was quiet for so long she thought he wasn't going to answer. Finally, the family kind. Family? My family has been in import business for 4 generations. We handle things other companies can't or won't. Illegal things. Sometimes. Violence? When necessary. Have you ever killed anyone? Another long pause. Yes. The simple honesty was somehow less frightening than a lie would have been. Nia set down her mug and really looked at him. He didn't look like a killer. He looked like someone who carried too much weight on his shoulders. Do you regret it? Some of it. Not all of it. Which parts do you regret? The parts that didn't protect anyone. The parts that were just business. And the parts you don't regret? The parts that kept innocent people safe. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, the fog was finally lifting, revealing glimpses of stars between the clouds. You said someone you cared about died because you weren't careful, Nia said eventually. My wife. The words were so quiet she almost missed them. I'm sorry. We were married 6 months. She was pregnant. His hands clenched and unclenched in his lap. Car bomb. Meant for me. Nia's heart broke a little. How long ago? 3 years. Is that why you don't make wishes? Why you don't celebrate birthdays? The last birthday wish I made was for a healthy baby and a long life with my wife. He looked up at her then, and she saw the careful way he held himself together. I learned that some things are too important to risk asking for. Without thinking, she reached over and covered his clenched hands with one of hers. His skin was warm, slightly rough. He went very still but didn't pull away. That's not how wishes work, she said softly. No? No. Wishes don't cause bad things. Bad things just happen sometimes. How can you be sure? Because I've been making wishes my whole life, and most of them haven't come true. If wishes had that kind of power, don't you think I'd be living in a mansion by now instead of waiting tables? That surprised a small laugh out of him. What do you wish for? Stupid things. Enough money to pay bills without choosing between groceries and electricity. A car that starts every time. College for Malik. She paused. Someone who looks at me the way my dad looked at my mum back when I was little and thought love was simple. Love isn't simple. Nothing is simple. They sat holding hands in the lamplight, two people who had started the evening as strangers and now shared secrets they'd never told anyone else. I should let you rest, Luca said eventually. Yeah, but neither of them moved to break the connection. Luca? Yes? Thank you. For keeping me safe. I know you didn't have to. Yes. I did. Why? He looked at her for a long moment, like he was trying to decide how much truth to tell. Because you sang happy birthday to a stranger and meant it. Because you protected that kid at the diner. Because you light candles for people who've forgotten how to make wishes. He stood up, carefully extracting his hands from hers. Sleep well, Nia. Good night. He paused at the door. The lock works both ways. You can keep me out, but you can also lock the door to keep yourself in if it makes you feel safer. After he left, Nia sat on the bed for a long time, thinking about wishes and regrets and the way his hands had felt under hers. Finally, she got up and turned the lock not to keep him out, but because it made her feel like she still had some control over her life. Before turning off the light, she pulled out her phone and checked the timer she'd set at the pier. It had run out hours ago, but she'd forgotten to stop it. Somehow, their hour had turned into something else entirely, something that didn't have a timer or a price tag, something that felt dangerously close to hope. Down the hall, she could hear quiet voices, Luca and Matteo discussing plans and precautions. The sound should have frightened her, but instead, it felt like a lullaby. For the first time in months, Nia Carter fell asleep knowing someone else was watching out for her brother, and for the first time in years, Luca Vitale fell asleep thinking about something other than the people he'd failed to protect. Morning came too early, filtered through white curtains that made everything look soft and safe. Nia woke to the smell of coffee and something baking real coffee, not the bitter stuff from the diner, and bread that smelled like heaven. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then, reality crashed back like cold water. Someone had taken pictures of her with Luca. Someone had asked questions about her at the apartment building. Someone had fired a gun at them in the fog. Her phone showed 6 missed calls from Mr. Halpin and 3 text messages asking where she was. Her shift had started an hour ago. She dressed quickly in yesterday's clothes and followed the smell of breakfast downstairs. The kitchen was warm and bright, morning sun streaming through windows that looked out on a small garden where someone grew tomatoes and herbs. Signora Lena stood at the stove, turning what looked like the most perfect eggs Nia had ever seen. Her grey hair was already neat, her apron spotless despite the cooking. "Buongiorno, cara," she said without turning around. "Did you sleep?" "Better than I expected." Nia accepted the cup of coffee Lena handed her. It was perfect, strong but smooth, with real cream swirled on top. "Thank you, for everything." "Prego." Lena waved away the thanks. "Luca, he tells me you work at the diner this morning. I'm supposed to, but my boss has been calling." Nia showed her the missed calls. "I should probably—" "Already handled," Luca said from the doorway. He was dressed in dark jeans and a grey sweater, looking more relaxed than she'd seen him. Almost normal, except for the careful way his eyes checked every corner of the room before settling on her face. "What do you mean, handled?" "Matteo called in sick for you. Family emergency. You can't just— It's not permanent. Just until we figure this out." Nia set down her coffee cup harder than necessary. "I need that job. You need to be alive more." "Easy for you to say. You're not 2 months behind on rent." Luca and Lena exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Before Nia could ask what it meant, Luca pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. "This was taken last night, while we were on the pier." The image was grainy but clear enough. Her and Luca standing by the railing, her lighting the candle in his muffin. To anyone looking at it, they appeared intimate, close, like people who mattered to each other. Where did this come from? A private chat group, 23 members, all connected to the Belandi family. Who are the Belandis? "People who want me dead." The casual way he said it made her stomach lurch. Why? Territory, business, old grudges. He put the phone away. The why doesn't matter. What matters is, they think you're important to me. But I'm not. No, he agreed. But they don't know that. Lena placed a plate of eggs and toast in front of Nia, then stood behind her chair like a protective grandmother. Eat, she said firmly. Problems are easier to solve on a full stomach. The eggs were perfect, fluffy and rich, with herbs from the garden. Nia ate automatically, her mind spinning. Yesterday morning she'd been a waitress with money troubles. Now she was apparently on some kind of hit list because she'd sung happy birthday to the wrong man. How long before they figure out I don't matter to you? She asked. That's the problem, Luca said quietly. I'm not sure they'll ever believe it now. What does that mean? It means you can't go back to your old life. Not safely. The fork fell from Nia's hand, clattering against the plate. You're saying I can never go home? Never see my brother? Never work at the diner again? I'm saying we need to find another way. What other way? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. What? Nia asked. Matteo's at your building. The landlord is telling everyone your rent was paid in full this morning. Cash. The final notice. Nia had completely forgotten about it. You paid my rent? Yes. She stood up so fast her chair rocked. I didn't ask you to do that. You needed it done. That's not the point. You can't just fix my problems without asking. Why not? Because I take care of myself. I've been taking care of myself since I was 17 years old, and I don't need some stranger swooping in and... She stopped mid-sentence because Luca's phone was buzzing again. This time, when he looked at it, all the color drained from his face. What? She asked, her anger forgotten. He turned the phone so she could see the screen. It was a text message from an unknown number. Pretty waitress. Nice brother. Attached was a photo of Malik walking to school, his backpack slung over one shoulder, completely unaware he was being watched. Nia's legs gave out. She sank back into the chair, staring at the image of her baby brother looking so small and vulnerable on the empty street. They found him, she whispered. Matteo's on his way to get him now, Luca said, already dialing. Malik will be safe. How can you promise that? Because I won't let anything happen to him. The absolute certainty in his voice was the only thing keeping her from complete panic. She watched him speak rapid Italian into the phone, his voice sharp with command. Lena pressed another cup of coffee into Nia's shaking hands. Breathe, Cara, she said softly. In and out. Luca, he will fix this. How do you know? Because he has never failed to protect someone he cares about. Not since. She didn't finish the sentence, but Nia understood. Not since his wife died. Luca hung up and immediately called another number. Mr. Halpern, this is a friend of Nia Carter's. Yes, she's fine, but there's been a family emergency. I understand your concern, but it would be better if you closed the diner today. No, not permanently, just today. He hung up and looked at Nia. The diner's closed. Mr. Halpern is going to visit his sister in New Jersey until this is over. You can't just shut down people's lives. I can, if it keeps them alive. His phone rang. He answered on the first ring. Matteo? Nia could only hear one side of the conversation, but she watched Luca's face for clues. His expression remained carefully neutral, which somehow made everything worse. Good. Yes. How long? Fine. Do it. He hung up and looked at her. Malik is safe. Matteo got to him before school started. He's with Miss Dina's cousin across town. I want to see him. Not yet. He's scared. He doesn't understand what's happening. Matteo will explain. And Miss Dina's cousin has 3 kids of her own. He won't be alone. Nia stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where tomatoes grew in neat rows and herbs basked in the morning sun. It looked so peaceful, so normal, like the kind of place where the biggest worry was whether it might rain. This is insane, she said to her reflection in the glass. 3 days ago, I'd never heard of you. Now my whole life is upside down. I know. Do you? Do you really? She turned to face him. You live in this world. This is normal for you. But I'm just a waitress who wanted to make enough money to keep the lights on. You're not just anything. What's that supposed to mean? Luca looked at Lena, who nodded once and quietly left the kitchen, giving them privacy. It means, he said carefully, that you matter more than you think you do. To who? To me. The words hung in the air between them like a bridge neither was sure they wanted to cross. You don't even know me, Nia said. I know you work double shifts to take care of your brother. I know you stand up to drunk men twice your size when someone needs protecting. I know you light birthday candles for strangers and mean it when you sing. That's not enough to build anything on, isn't it? She stared at him. This man who had turned her life upside down in less than 24 hours. Yesterday, he'd been a mystery. Today, he was the only thing standing between her and people who wanted to hurt her family. What are you really asking me? I'm asking you to trust me, to let me keep you safe until we can find a way to make this right. And what if there is no way to make it right? What if your enemies never believe I don't matter to you? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. How? I don't know yet. At least he was honest. Nia walked back to the table and sat down, looking at her cold eggs and thinking about choices, good ones and bad ones, and the kind that changed everything. If I stay, she said slowly, what does that look like? Do I just hide in this house forever? For now, until I can figure out how to end this. And my job? There will be other jobs. And Malik? Safe, taken care of, I promise. By you? By me. She picked up her fork and took another bite of eggs that tasted like ash in her mouth. Outside, a bird landed in the tomato plants, bright red against the green leaves. I have conditions, she said finally. Name them. I want to see Malik. Today, even if it's just for a few minutes. Too dangerous. Then we video call him every day. I want to see his face and know he's okay. Agreed. I want to contribute. I can't just sit here and let you pay for everything. Nia, I mean it. I need to feel useful. I can help with cooking, cleaning, whatever, but I'm not going to be some kept woman hiding in your guest room. Luca almost smiled at that. I don't think anyone could keep you anywhere you didn't want to be. Also, no locked doors, no lies, no decisions about my life made without talking to me first. Agreed. And when this is over, however it ends, I go back to my own life. This isn't permanent. Of course, but something in his voice suggested he wasn't as sure about that as he sounded. One more thing, Nia said. Yes? I want to know what you're planning. If you're going to do something dangerous to fix this, I want to know about it. Why? Because if something happens to you, I need to know how to protect myself and my brother. It was a practical request, but the way Luca looked at her suggested he heard something else in it. Something like concern for his safety. Nothing's going to happen to me, he said. You can't promise that. I can promise I'll be careful. Will you? Yes. She believed him. Maybe she shouldn't have, but she did. Okay, she said. I'll stay. For now. Relief flickered across his face so quickly she almost missed it. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might regret having me around. I doubt that. Before either of them could say anything else, Lena appeared in the doorway with a small duffel bag. Matteo brought this, she said. Some clothes for you, from your apartment. Nia unzipped the bag and found 3 days' worth of clothes, her phone charger, and a small framed photo of her and Malik from last Christmas. Someone, probably Matteo, had been very careful to pack only practical things. Nothing that suggested he'd been searching through her personal belongings. At the bottom of the bag was a folded piece of paper. She opened it and found a note in Malik's handwriting. Nia, the man who brought this said, you're safe but can't come home yet. Miss, Rosa, Dina's cousin, is nice and makes good pancakes. I'm scared, but I trust you. Love you, M. Nia's eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. She folded the note carefully and slipped it into her pocket. He's a brave kid, Luca said quietly. He's had to be. Not anymore. She looked up at him. Promise me something. What? Promise me that when this is over, he'll still be a kid. That we won't have stolen that from him. I promise. And somehow, despite everything that had happened, despite all the ways her life had been turned upside down, Nia believed he meant it. Outside, the sun climbed higher in the sky, warming the garden where tomatoes grew in neat rows and herbs basked in the light. Inside, 3 people who had been strangers yesterday began to figure out how to become something like a family, at least until the danger passed, at least until Luca could find a way to make the Belandi family understand that some people were worth protecting, even if it started a war. Especially then, 3 days passed in a strange kind of peace. Nia learned that Signora Lina hummed Italian songs while she cooked, that Matteo played chess with the concentration of a general planning war, and that Luca read everything, newspapers, books, even the labels on cereal boxes when he thought no one was looking. She also learned that the townhouse had rules she hadn't noticed at first. Matteo checked every window lock twice a day. No one answered the door without looking through the peephole first. And Luca's phone never stopped buzzing with messages he read but rarely answered out loud. On the fourth morning, Nia woke to find Luca missing from the breakfast table. "Where is he?" she asked Lena, who was making what smelled like the world's most perfect pancakes. "Business meeting," Lena said without looking up from the griddle. "What kind of business meeting?" "The kind where he tries to fix things." Nia's stomach clenched. "Dangerous things?" "Luca is careful." "That's not what I asked." Lena flipped a pancake with practiced ease. "Some conversations cannot happen over the phone, Kara. Some problems require looking a man in the eye. What if something goes wrong? Then Matteo will handle it." "Where's Matteo?" "With Luca." So she was alone in the house, with a woman who spoke in riddles and made pancakes, while men she was learning to care about walked into situations that might get them killed. Nia paced to the window and stared out at the garden. The tomatoes were getting redder every day. Life going on like normal, while her world balanced on the edge of a knife. Her phone, the clean one Matteo had given her, rang at exactly 9 o'clock. Malik's face filled the screen, looking older than 12 but trying to smile. "Hey," he said. "Hey yourself. How are the pancakes today?" "Miss Rosa puts chocolate chips in them. It's pretty great." He paused. "Nia, when can I come home?" It was the same question he asked every day. Every day, she gave him the same answer. "Soon. I don't know yet, baby, but it won't be much longer. The man, Matteo, he's teaching me Italian. Did you know there are 17 different ways to say, 'Be careful'? I didn't know that. He says when I'm older, maybe I can visit Italy and see where his grandmother lived." Nia's throat tightened. Malik was making plans with people who might not survive the week. "That sounds nice. Are you okay? You look worried." She forced her face into something like a smile. "I'm fine. Just missing you." "I miss you too. But Miss Rosa says missing people makes you love them harder." Miss Rosa sounds very wise. They talked for 10 more minutes about everything and nothing, his math, homework, the stray cat that had been hanging around Miss Rosa's back door, the book he was reading about dragons, normal 12-year-old things that made Nia's heart ache with how much she wanted normal back. After they hung up, she sat in the kitchen listening to Lena hum and trying not to imagine all the ways this morning could go wrong. At noon, she heard a car pull up outside. Then voices Luca and Matteo talking in Italian, their words too quick and quiet for her to catch. The front door opened and closed, footsteps in the hallway. She held her breath until Luca appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking tired but uninjured. "How did it go?" she asked. "Not as well as I hoped." Matteo appeared behind him, carrying a manila envelope. His usually careful expression had hardened into something that made Nia's pulse quicken. "What does that mean?" she asked. Luca sat down across from her at the kitchen table. "It means Enzo Belandi doesn't want to negotiate." "Who's Enzo Belandi?" "The man who wants me dead." "What did he say?" Luca and Matteo exchanged one of their loaded looks. Finally, Matteo opened the envelope and pulled out a photograph. He set it on the table in front of her. It was another picture of Malik, this one taken yesterday. He was throwing a ball to a small dog in Miss Rosa's backyard, laughing at something off camera. He looked happy, safe. He also looked completely unaware that someone was watching him through a telephoto lens. "They know where he is," Nia said, her voice coming out flat and strange. "Yes. What else?" Matteo pulled out another photo. This one showed Miss Rosa hanging laundry on a line, her 3 young children playing nearby. A normal family moment turned sinister by the fact that someone had been close enough to photograph it. "They're threatening everyone," Nia said. "Yes. What did you offer him? To make this stop? Money? Territory? A truce that would benefit both our families. And?" "He said some insults can't be bought off." Nia stared at the photograph spread across Lena's clean table. "What insult?" "You," Luca said quietly. "Me?" "In his mind, I chose you over respect for the old ways. I brought an outsider into family business. That can't be ignored. But I'm not in your family business. I'm just a waitress who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time." That's not how he sees it. Lena set a cup of coffee in front of Luca without being asked. Her movements were careful, controlled, but Nia could see the tension in her shoulders. "So, what happens now?" Nia asked. "Now we consider other options." "What kind of options?" Another look passed between the men. This one felt heavier than the rest. "The permanent kind," Matteo said. Understanding hit Nia like a punch to the chest. "You're talking about killing him." We're talking about ending the threat, Luca said carefully. That's the same thing. Sometimes it is. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where nothing had changed. Tomatoes still ripened in the sun. Herbs still grew in neat rows. Life still went on while people discussed murder at kitchen tables. What if I left? She said without turning around. Left where? The city, the state. What if I took Malik and we just disappeared? Started over somewhere else? They'd find you. How can you be sure? Because Enzo Belandi doesn't forget, and he has a long reach. Longer than yours? Silence. She turned around to find both men watching her with expressions she couldn't read. What aren't you telling me? She asked. Enzo has connections in other cities, Luca said finally. Other families who would consider it a favor to help him track you down. So I'd never be safe, no matter where we went. Probably not. Nia sank back into her chair, feeling the walls of her choices closing in. Unless he's dead, and if you kill him, what happens then? Do his people come after you? After me? Enzo doesn't have children, no close family. His lieutenants are ambitious but not loyal. If he dies, they'll probably fight each other for control instead of coming after us. Probably. Nothing is certain in this business, but it's the best option we have. Lena refilled everyone's coffee cups, her face carefully neutral. But when she set Nia's cup down, she squeezed her shoulder gently. When? Nia asked. Soon. How soon? Tonight. The word hit her like a physical blow. Tonight. In a few hours, Luca would walk into danger that might get him killed, and she would sit in this kitchen, staring at tomatoes and waiting to find out if she was a widow before she'd ever been a bride. The thought surprised her. When had she started thinking of herself as belonging to Luca in any way that mattered? I want to come with you, she said. No. I could help. No. I could wait in the car. Be a lookout or something. Naya. Luca reached across the table and took her hand. This isn't a movie. This is the kind of business that gets people killed very quickly and very messily. What if something happens to you? Then Matteo will make sure you and Malik get out of the city safely. That's not what I meant. I know. She looked down at their joined hands. His were warm, slightly rough, with a small scar across the knuckles she'd noticed before but never asked about. I don't want you to die, she said quietly. I don't plan to. Plans change. Sometimes. Luca. Yes. She looked up at him. This man who had walked into her life 4 days ago and turned everything upside down. This man who paid her rent without asking and made sure her brother was safe and looked at her like she mattered. Come back, she said. I will. Promise me. I promise. It wasn't enough, but it was all she had. The rest of the day passed too quickly and too slowly at the same time. Lena cooked dinner pasta with a sauce that had been simmering since morning, crusty bread that filled the house with the smell of home. They ate mostly in silence, the weight of the coming evening pressing down on all of them. At 7 o'clock, Matteo disappeared upstairs and came back down dressed in dark clothes that somehow made him look even more dangerous than usual. At 7:30, Luca followed, changing from his soft sweater into something black and practical. When he came back to the kitchen, he looked like a different person, still recognizably himself, but harder somehow, more focused, like a man preparing for war. How long will you be gone? Nia asked. A few hours, maybe less. And then it's over. He kissed Lena's cheek, said something to her in Italian that made her nod and touch his face gently. Then he turned to Nia. Lock the doors behind us. Don't open them for anyone except me or Matteo. Okay. If something goes wrong, if we don't come back by morning, Lena knows what to do. She'll get you to Malik and out of the city. Nothing's going wrong. No. But if it does. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne and see the way his jaw was set with determination. Naya. Yeah? Earlier, when you said you didn't want me to die. I meant it. I know. I wanted you to know. I feel the same way. About you. Before she could respond, he leaned down and kissed her forehead. Brief, gentle, but it felt like a promise. Then he was gone, and she was left standing in the kitchen with Lena, listening to the sound of the car driving away into the night. How long have you known him? Nia asked. Since he was 15. Wild boy, always getting into trouble, but a good heart. Has he ever done this before? This kind of business? Many times. Does he always come back? Lena was quiet for a long moment, washing dishes that were already clean. Always, she said finally, But there is always a first time for everything. They settled in the living room to wait. Lena knitted something pink and soft, while Nia tried to read a book she couldn't concentrate on. The clock on the mantel ticked too loudly, marking each minute that passed without word. At 10 o'clock, Nia's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Package delivered. Coming home. It's over, she told Lena. Benet. Lena set down her knitting and crossed herself quickly. I will make coffee. They drank coffee and waited for the sound of the car. When it finally came, just after 11, Nia had to force herself not to run to the door. Luca looked tired when he walked in, but uninjured. Matteo was behind him, already pulling off the dark jacket he'd worn. Is it done? Lena asked. It's done, Luca confirmed. Nia searched his face for signs of what he'd just done, what he'd had to do to keep her safe. But all she saw was exhaustion and something that might have been relief. How do you feel? She asked. Like I want to take a very long, very hot shower. And then we figure out what comes next. What does come next? He looked at her for a long moment, like he was trying to decide how much truth to tell. You're free, he said finally. You and Malik. You can go home whenever you want. Just like that? Just like that. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt something like loss. What about you? She asked. What about me? Where do you go from here? Back to my life, I suppose. Which looks like what? Quiet. Careful. Probably boring. Alone? Usually. They stared at each other across the living room, both of them carefully not saying what they were thinking. I should call Malik, Nia said finally. Let him know he can come home. Tomorrow, Luca said. Let him sleep tonight. We can pick him up in the morning. We. If you want company. Yeah, she said softly. I'd like that. Upstairs, Nia lay in the guest room bed and listened to the sound of Luca moving around in his room across the hall. Water running, drawers opening and closing, normal sounds that somehow felt intimate in the quiet house. She was free to go home, free to return to her life of double shifts and final notices and grocery store calculations, free to pretend the last 4 days had never happened. The problem was, she wasn't sure she wanted to. The bigger problem was, she was pretty sure Luca felt the same way. And the biggest problem of all was that neither of them knew what to do about it. Outside her window, the garden slept under starlight, tomatoes ripening slowly in the dark. Inside, 2 people who had saved each other's lives lay awake thinking about choices that would change everything. Again, in the morning, they would drive across town to collect Malik and bring him home. They would return to the apartment where final notices had been replaced by paid receipts and empty refrigerators had been mysteriously filled. Nia would go back to work at the diner, where Mr. Halpin would pretend nothing had happened and the regular customers would welcome her back with extra-large tips. Luca would return to his quiet life of import business and careful routines, but he would still eat dinner at the corner booth twice a week just to make sure she was safe. And sometimes, when their eyes met across the diner, they would both remember the taste of birthday candle wax and the weight of promises made in the dark. But that was tomorrow's story. Tonight was for lying awake and thinking about the difference between being safe and being home, and whether it was possible for a waitress and a man with dangerous secrets to build something real from the ashes of a life turned upside down. Tonight was for hoping the answer was yes.